Hockey world, what is up? This is the Leafs Convo podcast. I'm your host, Norman James. Thank you so much for being aboard for this episode. It's going to be a good one. Mike Augello standing by. He and I are going to talk about someone we believe is really the most important piece to this Leafs puzzle that could potentially configure to become a champion real soon. Number 34, Auston Matthews. We've been John Tavares heavy in terms of our content over the past month. Before that, it was Jake Gardiner-centric. Now we hone in on Auston Matthews. Reports indicate he and the Leafs are in negotiations on a contract extension. This is fantastic news, right? On so many levels. Mike's ready to go. You're ready to go. I'm ready to go. What do you say? Let's pod. The Leafs Convo starts right now. And here he is, our good friend from Cheektowaga, New York, the one and only Mike Augello. Hello, sir.
Good morning, Norman. How are you?
Not too bad. So reports indicate that the Leafs and Auston Matthews are in discussion over a contract extension for Mr. 34. I'm not very surprised by it. Are you?
No, not at all. I think it's smart to be proactive when it comes to getting Auston Matthews and Mitch Marner signed to long-term extensions. It's just now a question for me is, what form does this extension take? I mean, I would assume they want to get him locked up for as long as possible. And obviously, if they're talking now, they want to get him locked up before the beginning of the regular season, because if he scores another 45 or 50 goals, you know, that just raises the price. But yeah, it's a good proactive move by Kyle Dubas. And I would think if they're starting negotiations now, even though Auston Matthews said there was no rush, I would think that they'd probably want to get a deal agreed upon before the beginning of the regular season.
Why wouldn't he? Don't you think that John Tavares taking a haircut financially to come to Toronto at this point in his career is an indicator to Auston Matthews to get off his ass and start to make something work with the organization? Don't you think that Tavares' move influenced Auston Matthews' move in this case?
I think it's possible. I think it's basically it could be used as a measuring stick in terms of what Matthews will get paid. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it was free agency, and you know, when you're in a free agency situation, people get overpaid. But sure. The other is Tavares, as we know, could have taken $13 million from San Jose and took 11 to come home and play for Toronto. I mean, Matthews is going to be looking, and this is where, like I said, I think the only suspense is when it comes to Matthews. He's going to get a long-term deal, but is it going to be the 8-year deal like Jack Eichel signed in Buffalo, who was a year older, or at least was drafted in the previous draft? Or is it going to be like John Tavares, Stamkos, Kane, and Taves took out of their ELC, which was a 5-year deal, which would make Matthews basically, I think he would be 26 or 27 when that deal expired, and it would basically, he could get another 8-year deal as Kane and Taves and Stamkos, and you know, Tavares got 7, but they all got long-term extensions. So they may want to take, it's basically an extended bridge. Would he want to do that, or does he want the 8 years? And that's where I think the interest in terms of where it goes lies.
This is the Leafs Convo. Norman James in London, Ontario. Mike Augello in Cheektowaga, New York. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube page. We're growing every single day. Is this just about dollars and cents, Mike, or is it John Tavares is willing to join the Toronto Maple Leafs, put his money where his mouth is, and help augment this group towards a Stanley Cup? Auston Matthews has to see that and say, look, I'm going to get paid, and I'm at a point in my career right now where I'm thinking of making as much money as I possibly can. But here's one of the best players in the game coming to Toronto to commit to this program that we all believe is going to be successful ultimately. I want to be here too.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say it's all about money, but I think money and how much you make per year is a sort of a reflection of respect and your position in the league. So I don't think that, you know, in any scenario, Auston Matthews is taking less than Jack Eichel is taking, because Jack Eichel's now 3 years in the league. are not up to par with Austin Matthews'
No.
2 years in the league. So I think it's, if he puts up a 50-goal season this year, which is not out of the realm of possibility because he scored 40 in his rookie year and he would have he averaged out to 40 in his sophomore year in spite of having 3 injuries. If he scores 50, then he's up in McDavid territory. But I think the thing is right now, if you sign him early without that 3rd year there, you can say, okay, well, we'll give you more than Eichel. We're not going to give you as much as McDavid. And if he takes 11 million or 11.25 or something like that on an 8-year deal, I think that's a good deal for the Leafs and a great deal for Matthews. So I think that would be the compromise. I just think that the possibility of that 5-year deal, and remember Stamkos 5-year, I think he took 7.5 on that extended deal. I think that was the same amount as Kane and Taves. Tavares was 5.5 or 5.75. So we're talking probably saving a couple million, but I think the Leafs would give up that couple million to get him locked up for an additional 2 or 3 years.
Are you happy to see or at least get a sense of a cohesiveness among these young superstars with the Maple Leafs? Again, I'll go back to the point that John Tavares could have gone to a multitude of places and made more money. He chose to return home to Toronto to help take this team to the next level. Austin Matthews has to see that and say, look, this is essentially my team, and here's one of the best players in the league coming to join me and Mitch and Willie and Jake and Freddie and whomever. That makes me feel good. Now it's my turn to respond with a good-natured, good-willed negotiation approach to an extension. And the fact that Austin Matthews is publicly saying that things are in the process, I mean, that's good news, Mike. And we know how much bad news has surrounded this team for decades.
Well,
this is just more, but to me, it just seems like it's good news. And within the confines of that clique, of that team culture, to have this cohesiveness and this easiness at this point right now is a really good sign, considering there are going to be some bumps along the road going forward.
Well, yeah, when you compare it, and I wrote something about this on Hockey Buzz earlier this week about the inherent instability and dysfunction of more than half of the Canadian franchises in the NHL. I mean, right now, and believe me, the Leafs fans have dealt with enough dysfunction in the 51 years since they've won their last Stanley Cup, between Ballard and all the general managers and coaches and players and every thing that's happened. It's nice for a change to see other fan bases deal with that. So I mean, yes, I think that getting Matthews locked up and avoiding any kind of contract holdout or any kind of angst is a good thing, and it doesn't sound like he wants to go down that road. Now Mitch Marner, on the other hand, I've heard things like he's going to go through the 3rd year of his entry-level deal, and if he does what a lot of people think he's going to do, which is playing on Tavares' right wing,
oh boy,
scoring 80, 85. Yeah, but this is the problem here. It's like he's a winger. He's a great winger. He's an unbelievable playmaker. He's probably, he's going to be, when he reaches his prime, going to probably be one of the top 10 players in the league. I don't think he's there yet, but I think he will be. But the thing is, he's a winger, and the Leafs cannot pay him anywhere close to what Tavares and Matthews make, and that could be a bone of contention. If he puts up a big year next year, he's going to expect to get paid 8.5, and I don't know if they probably can't do that. So he might go bridge deal. You never know.
Yeah, you're going to have to cross many bridges of contention. Have you visited the bridges of contention, Mike? It's beautiful this time.
No, but I have watched the Bridge Over the River Kwai.
No, you're right. You're just gonna have to cross these bridges when you encounter them, and when you're ready to deal with crossing them. It's not going to be easy, but at the end of the day, I think the step, the massive step, the courage that John Tavares showed in choosing Toronto for as many reasons as he chose, and those are the same reasons he chose to come to Toronto are the reasons he could have chosen not to come to Toronto. So this guy shows courage in joining this young, eclectic, vibrant, talented, tenacious group. And I think he set in motion a real confidence and a real willingness to enhance and strengthen this core that is the Toronto Maple Leafs. This team, Mike, has a chance. As the way it's constructed right now, with a few additions, has a chance to win not only a Stanley Cup, but several Stanley Cups over the next bunch of NHL seasons. And these guys know it. Clearly, there could be a time in their careers, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, I mean, even Austin Matthews, I don't know, even John Tavares at some point, where they may end up going somewhere else. But hopefully at that juncture, they will be able to look back and say, over a 6-7 year period with the Maple Leafs, they were able to end the Stanley Cup futility and win a couple of cups, get some rings, and become immortal as Toronto Maple Leafs. This is the Leafs Convo. Norman James, along with Mike Augello. What, other than the housekeeping that is the Austin Matthews contract extension, hopefully that can get done. Mm-hmm. What else? I mean, here we are. We're approaching August, Mike. But 8 weeks, and we're talking about training camp. I mean, time flies, man. What?
Five weeks until the rookie tournament. 6 weeks until training camp.
Oh, I know you have it marked off on your calendar. Do you have a little advent? Do you have a little advent calendar that just pull out?
No, I just have a paper calendar. I'm an old school. I just flip through. Hey, it's 6 weeks. You know,
Mike. There's nothing wrong with being old school. I've been listening to a lot of Howard Stern lately, and I listen to that guy because I want to learn how to become better as an interviewer and be able to craft my questions more concisely and just get into deeper conversation. Because, Mike, I know you're just such a deep person, and I'm trying to unpack and unpeel the layers of Mike Augello. But I'm finding out these guys who are, ahead of the curve in media, and just these guys are the influencers. A lot of these guys are just really old school in what they do, and I'm trying to peel back myself. And I'm gonna pull off Twitter a little bit. I find that it's just become a hangout for adults, and it's been 10 years now, and I really don't find I don't get too much out of it other than just being able to communicate with people about what we're doing on our podcast. But I digress. The question I wanted to get to is what else are the Leafs trying to do right now? I mean, is it just sort of maybe Kyle Dubas goes and hits Muskoka, puts his feet up, and keeps his phone on vibrate, and if something happens, something happens?
Well, I mean, right now it seems to be like this week, one of the guys who I thought might be an option in terms of a veteran add, a free agent, since they have they're going to have a ton of cap space, was a guy like Dan Hamhuis, and he signed a 2-year deal with Nashville. So. Basically it sounds like he's going to be a bottom pairing guy for them. And if they end up trading Ryan Ellis before the deadline, he could step in and move into a top 4 role. But there's really nothing in terms of in free agency that's going to improve the Leafs unless, they want a veteran on the bottom pairing, who's better, who has more everything than they thought Roman Polak had left. And that's possible. I mean, there's Kevin Bieksa, there's Tobias Enstrom, there are a few other guys out there. And I illustrated this in an article that I wrote a couple days ago, was and Martin Durkels, who I think is still a pretty decent prospect, even though he played in the ECHL last year. Now, he was a third round pick of from Mark Hunter's regime in 2015. Had a couple good years in the queue. Has always impressed me at rookie tournaments and training camp. I think he's got the speed to play in the NHL, but he signed an AHL contract coming out of junior, played mostly in Orlando last year in the ECHL, and now for Hockey Buzz, our KHL insider Avis Kilnans was stating that Durkels might go play in the KHL with the team based in Latvia, where he's from. And if he stays there long enough, the Leafs basically lose his rights. Now, they had one of their defensemen from 2017, one of their draft picks, Emily Rassinen, who played in Kingston. He's going over to play with Jokerit in the KHL, but they retain his rights for 3 years, and it was only a 2-year deal in Jokerit. So him going over there and letting him develop, that's fine. If Durkels doesn't get an entry-level contract from the Leafs and he goes over to the KHL, they may lose his rights. They may never see him again. He may be to go play with another NHL team. And I still think he's a legitimate NHL prospect. But this is the dilemma that they have with right now 47 going on 48 contracts with Nylander's deal still up there. They don't have a lot of wiggle room, and I continue to say they need to make a 2 or 3 for 1 deal to get a defenseman, and that would help out their contract situation too, but easier said than done.
They must pay these KHL players with suitcases full of cash. I don't know why, under any circumstance, anybody from outside of Russia would want to play in the KHL. And I'm not disparaging the hardworking people of that league. It's just, we know Russia can just be a real pear-shaped mess at times, and it's insane. But, guys are looking for opportunities, and if the cash is guaranteed, all the best to them. Mike, on the defenseman search, I just don't see anything going down. I honestly don't think Kyle Dubas is disregarding the need for a shutdown defenseman, somebody of a high stature, somebody who is reputable and reliable, and who can help make some of the younger defensemen with a few hiccups in their game better. I just don't see how it's going to happen. And by extension, I see Jake Gardiner being with this team, and perhaps he's going to be a guy that they're going to entertain a new contract with, warts and all. Mike, I just don't see how it's going to get done. I don't see who's out there. Who is readily available, and then again, Kyle Dubas is a young man, and he's known for being pretty innovative and interesting, and a guy who can probably surprise us along the way. So we'll just have to wait and see if he can pull a rabbit out of his hat. But at this point, right now, I just think it looks like it's status quo.
Well, I mean, there may be options that unfold at points during training camp or before. Like U.S. Thanksgiving is always the line of demarcation when teams reevaluate where they are. And, the thing is, if you keep all that empty cap space, it gives you a lot of flexibility at the deadline, but we know that the prices increase at the deadline. So, do they really want – I think there are opportunities still out there, Justin Falk and Tanev and Jared Spurgeon possibly, and a few other scenarios that probably nobody knows about based on whether a team is going to sign somebody. And I think the Leafs are they're waiting for their opportunity, and maybe the opportunities are not there right now, but they might be in the near future. And as for Gardiner, I was struck by James Myrtle's comments on TSN 1050 earlier this week when he said, the Leafs management now basically has a different philosophy, and I agree with this. They have a different philosophy than the Lou Lamoriello administration, and the thing is, this administration will not let a player like a Van Riemsdyk or a Bozak walk away for nothing. It's an asset. You have asset management. You either get something for them or you keep them, but you do not let them walk away for nothing. And that's where, if they can't get Gardiner signed, if they think he's asking for too much, or his positioning in terms of free agency is going to be too strong that he could demand $7 million a year or something like that, they're going to move him. So I don't think that, he may start the year with them. They may, use him as sort of a safety net for, Travis Dermott, if Travis Dermott isn't capable of moving up into the top 4. But I still think that Gardiner is going to be traded or extended. It's not going to be the middle ground.
Jake Gardiner is a fantastic player, and I know there are the faction out there who believe Jake Gardiner is the greatest defenseman of all time. But if that's indeed the case, then he's going to be talked about, and his warts are going to be not only honed in on, exposed, and criticized every which way, but he is going to be considered a pariah by many, and those who love him very much and all who want to pedestalize him and praise him are just going to have to understand that if you are at that level, you are going to be loved, but you're also going to be criticized. And I've always made the point about Jake Gardiner. We've done this ad nauseum, Mike. We've spoken about Jake Gardiner on this podcast over the life of this project, 4 months or whatever, more than any other player. But look, if he's going to be the big ticket defenseman back there, and he is going to be the guy who puts up 60 points and rushes the puck and throws these long bomb passes and makes a few of them, but also has a few picked off, and then the return is the puck ends up in your own net. This guy is going to need support. The question is, where are you going to get that support from when you're spending a lot of your money on Jake Gardiner? I'm sorry. he is not Nick Lidstrom, and he is not going to be able to carry a bunch of average defensemen to Stanley Cups and championships and solid defensive ideologies, and it's just not going to happen. So the alternative is to take his asset as, you know, being one of the top offensive defensemen in the league, spinning him around for something that you need, and bringing up some of these Jake Gardiner 2.0s or the Jake Gardiners in development, and have them work with that asset that you brought back for Jake Gardiner. But people just I think fans now, all we want to do is we just want to hero worship. We love these guys. We look at their stats. We just love them. I mean, there's an article right now about Austin Matthews and his genius. Like, that's great and all. We love these guys. We want to buy their jerseys and stuff, but these guys have to fit into the process, into the puzzle of winning a championship, because for guys like you and I, Mike, that is what it's all about, winning a championship, and that's what it really should be about. And if you can take Jake Gardiner and bring back something of similar stature, but of a different mold, a different mindset, a different quality that you are desperately needing, you have to entertain it, Mike. And I don't care how much you love the guy. It's got to be done, because team is more important than your love of one player. Last word to you.
Or even somebody who's under contract for longer, who might not be as good of a defenseman as Jake Gardiner. But it's asset management, and asset management is managing the cap, but it's also managing the type of players that you have. And like I said, I think that the organization seems to be developing the similar types of defensemen. You know, Riley's more offensive minded, but I think he's a much better two-way guy than Gardiner is. Dermott promises to be like Gardiner in that respect. Liljegren maybe a little bit less so, but I mean, they have those types of guys, so it allows you to potentially move Gardiner if you think that the price point that he's going to ask for before free agency is just too much to pay.
Mike, we'll do another podcast soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Norman.
That's a wrap for another episode. Thank you so much for all of your support. We're pushing 1,200 subscribers on YouTube. It's an amazing thing. If you're listening and haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button. We'll make it worth your while. You can get at us on social media, Twitter in particular, at I Am Sports Heart for me, at Mike and Buffalo for Michael, and at the Leafs Convo for the podcast in general. What do you think of what we're doing? You want to criticize us? You want to laud us? You want to praise us? Go ahead and do it. You can reach us through our social media avenues. Also, you can leave your comments in the YouTube comments section. Ladies and gentlemen, we are rocking and rolling. So much great content to come in the near future and beyond. And really, it's all because of you. And, of course, Mr. Augello. For Mike, I'm Norman James. This is the Leafs Convo. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.